Troy for that very powerful statement. Let's do everything that we can to make sure that Troy gets back into the legislature. And let me pick up right where Troy left off. Because essentially what he was talking about is power. He was talking about the fact that we have millions of people in this country who are working longer hours for low wages, certainly the case in Maine, certainly the case in Vermont. People who are worried sick about the future of their kids, people who can't afford decent child care, people who can't afford to send their kids to college, people who can't afford to take 2 weeks off for vacation, to get to know their family and enjoy some leisure time. That's the reality for millions of people in this country. Now, the people are angry, and they have a right to be angry. But let's take our anger out on the people who caused the problems. Take a look at the crooks on Wall Street who destroyed our economy. Take a look at the fact that a half a dozen Wall Street financial institutions have assets equivalent to 58% of the GDP of the United States of America. And let's tell those folks on Wall Street that criminal justice means we just don't arrest young people for smoking marijuana. We arrest Wall Street crooks. And maybe unlike Mr. Trump's, whose economic advisory team, the people who are going to give him advice, are made up of hedge fund managers and billionaires. Those are not the advisors we need. We need advisors who come from the working families of this country, who know what life is about. You're angry, you have a right to be angry. Take your anger out against the pharmaceutical industry that charges us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. In Maine, in Vermont, and all over this country, you know what? You got elderly people, they're cutting their pills in half because they can't afford the medicine they desperately need. You got 1 out of 5 Americans who get a prescription from a doctor, they can't afford to fill that prescription. But last year, 5 major drug companies, the largest 5, made $50 billion in profits. You want to get angry? Tell the crooks in the pharmaceutical industry to stop ripping off the American people. We got a little bit of different vision for America than does Mr. Trump. You know, I've been running around the country, as all of you know, for a year and a half, talking about a corrupt tax system, talking about a rigged economy, talking about a corrupt political system. And in one day, Donald Trump did more to make my case than I did in a year and a half. You want to get angry? Here's something to get angry about. You got a multi-billionaire, a guy who has mansions all over the world, lives in the lap of luxury, has wealth that the 99% have no clue what it's about. And this guy pays nothing in federal income tax. And he thinks he's a genius and brilliant for paying nothing. And he believes, why do he and other billionaires have to pay their taxes when the middle class and the working class are paying their taxes? Well, Hillary Clinton and I have a different idea, and we say to Mr. Trump and his billionaire friends, you know what? You are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. You know, I do not often quote Mitt Romney. Mitt and I live in very different worlds that we agree on very little. But there is something we do agree with, and that is, as Mitt Romney said, Donald Trump is a fraud and a phony. Now you are looking at a United States Senator who voted against every one of these disastrous trade agreements. I helped lead the effort against NAFTA and CAFTA and PNTO with China. And I'm going to do my best to see that this Trans-Pacific Partnership, that gets defeated as well. Now, Mr. Trump has made our bad trade policies a very important part of his campaign. And he comes to Maine and he goes all over the country. He says he's against outsourcing. What a terrible thing it is that companies are shutting down in America and they're going to China and they're going to Mexico, etc. And he's right. We have got to fundamentally change our trade policies. But I say to Mr. Trump, stop talking the talk, walk the walk.
Yeah.
If you are so concerned about outsourcing American jobs, why do you have factories in Bangladesh where you're paying workers 30 cents an hour? Why are you making your ties in China? Why are you manufacturing your clothing in Mexico and building your furniture in Turkey? If you are so concerned about the loss of American jobs, bring those manufacturing jobs back home to the United States of America. Mr. Trump think that it is a great idea that billionaires like himself not pay a nickel in federal income taxes. He wants, in addition to that, to expand tax breaks for the richest people in this country to the tune of many, many hundreds of billions of dollars. Among many other provisions, he wants to eliminate the estate tax, which applies to the top 0.2%, the richest 0.2%. He wants to eliminate that. Do you know what that means? The Walton family, as many of you know, they own Walmart. They are the wealthiest family in America. If you eliminate the estate tax, the wealthiest family in America gets a $53 billion tax break. And this is a man, Mr. Trump, who tells us he is concerned about working families. $53 billion tax break for the richest family in America, but he wants to throw 20 million Americans off of health insurance. This is not somebody concerned about working families. This is, as Mitt Romney said, a fraud and a phony. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people in this country who do not like Mr. Trump, who do not like Hillary Clinton, for whatever reasons. All that I ask is go beyond what TV does. What TV makes politics into is a personality contest. That's what television does. Every day, and TV makes this into, like the Super Bowl, the World Series, what the polls are today, who said something dumb yesterday. That's not what an election in a democratic society should be about. Here's what an election in a democratic society should be about. It should be about every American taking a hard look at the program, at the agenda of the different candidates, and make a determination as to which candidate is working best for you. This is not about, trust me, it is not about Hillary Clinton, it is not about Donald Trump. It is about the middle class and working class of this country, and selecting a president who will work for us. What the media too rarely does. Just talk about the major issues and see how the candidates come out on those issues. I want to pick up again on Troy's point and about power. And very few politicians will tell you this, but this is my deep belief and my deep fear, is that every day we are moving as a nation more and more into an oligarchic form of society. What does that mean? This is what it means. It means that economically, you see fewer and fewer entities, like the folks on Wall Street, control much of the economic activity in this country. And now what we are seeing is a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. We are seeing billionaires buying elections and undermining the foundation of American democracy. Now, I have run for office in Vermont many, many times. And I am a great believer in town meetings. I love doing events like this. I believe if you agree with me, great. If you don't agree with me, that's part of American democracy. Let's treat each other civilly. Let's discuss the issues. That's the essence of what we are. I believe that what democracy is about is one person, one vote. You get a vote, and you get a vote, and you get a vote. And majority wins. That's called democracy. What democracy is not about are a handful of billionaires buying elections, and that is exactly what is happening today. You have families like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and a few others. You got 10 families, 10, that are already spending over $1 billion in this election. So you get a vote and they get a vote, but they can flood the airwaves with ugly 30-second television ads. Now, on that very important issue of whether or not we allow billionaires to buy elections, what Hillary Clinton has said is that, and I just spoke to her last week, and she told me to convey this to you, that if she's elected president within the first 100 days of her administration, she will introduce a constitutional amendment to overturn this disastrous Citizens United. And what she has also said is that she will not nominate someone to the Supreme Court of the United States unless that candidate is prepared to overturn Citizens United. And I would hope, and I know it to be the case, that all over this country, whether people are progressives whether people are conservatives, whether people are moderates, Republicans, Democrats, or whatever. The overwhelming majority of the American people do not believe that billionaires should control our political life. Look, here in Maine, I know that you have a long history of men and women who have put their lives on the line in the military to defend our way of life. Vermont is the same. And we disparage what they have done in fighting for democracy if we are not prepared to overturn this disastrous decision, Supreme Court decision. Hillary Clinton wants to do that. Donald Trump does not. That's a big difference. In rural states like Maine and Vermont, a lot of folks are struggling with health care. The cost of health care and access to health care, access to dental care, is that an issue? Access to mental health counseling, is that an issue? Access to affordable prescription drugs, is that an issue? Hillary Clinton and I worked on an agreement after the primary process was over, which said that we will work together to double funding for community health centers all across this country. And that means opening up facilities so that people, regardless of their income, you got insurance, good. You don't have insurance, okay. You got Medicaid, okay. You got Medicare, fine. You don't have any insurance, that's okay too. People will be able to walk in the door regardless of their income. Get primary health care, get dental care, mental health counseling, low-cost prescription drugs. That's Hillary Clinton's position on health care. Trump's position is a pretty simple one. He wants to end the Affordable Care Act and throw 20 million people off of the health insurance they recently got. Here is another issue. Right now, all of us are aware that over the last 8 years, we have made progress in terms of the economy. Now, my Republican colleagues, we have to be very compassionate and sympathetic toward them because they suffer from a very serious illness called amnesia. And amnesia means that you have a memory block. You just don't remember. So I know that it is very easy to blame Obama for every problem that exists in the world. That's good, you could do that. But on the other hand, if you got a brain in your head, you want to look back a few years, see where we were and where we are today. Where we were 8 years ago, at this moment, we were losing under this great trickle-down economic theory that Trump wants to bring back. This brilliant idea that if you give tax breaks to billionaires and large corporations, they're going to make this economy great. Well, under that theory and under George W. Bush, we were losing 8 years ago 800,000 jobs a month. That's an unbelievable number. People say, oh, Obama, only created 300,000 jobs a month. Only created 11, 12 billion jobs in the last 8 years. Well, yeah, I would like to see us do better, but it's a hell of a lot better to create 300,000 jobs a month than to lose 800,000 jobs. And before we go back to Mr. Trump's trickle-down economics, remember that we were running up in the last point of Bush's era a $1.4 trillion deficit, and some people have forgotten that the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. You remember that? There were people who worried that they were going to put their credit card into an ATM machine and nothing was going to come out. That's trickle-down economics. We do not want to go back to that absurd idea. wealth inequality. When the top 1/10 now owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%, yes, we are going to ask the wealthy and large profitable corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes so we can reinvest in this country. Let's talk a little bit about what Secretary Clinton wants to do as part of that investment. She understands that while we have made progress in the last 8 years, much more has to be done. She understands that unemployment is too high, wages are too low. And we have got to start paying attention to people who have been forgotten for too long, and that is the American working class. What do we do? What do we do? For a start, we say that if you work 40 hours a week in the United States of America, you should not be living in poverty. We're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. What we say is that in the year 2016, it is an embarrassment that women are making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. That we need pay equity for women workers. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but we are the wealthiest nation today in the history of the world. We have extraordinary wealth. Problem is that almost all of the new wealth being created is going to the top 1%. Problem is that 58% of all new income being generated is going to the top 1%. Now, Hillary Clinton understands that a great nation like the United States of America should not have an infrastructure, roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, a rail system which is collapsing. That we need to invest in our infrastructure, and when we do that, we create millions of good-paying jobs. A number of months ago, I was in Flint, Michigan, and talked to parents of children who were being poisoned by lead in the water. But it's not just Flint, Michigan. There are communities all over this country where when people are turning on their water faucets, they're not getting clean water. This is the United States of America. We should have an excellent infrastructure, not one that is deteriorating. Let's rebuild the infrastructure for people out there. There was once a time, 30, 40 years ago, when the United States led the world in terms of being the best educated population on earth. We had a higher percentage of people who graduated college than any other country. That is not the case today, and that gap between other countries and the United States is growing wider. Hillary Clinton and I believe you understand that the United States will not succeed in a competitive global economy unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. Today, there are young people in Maine who are bright, who are qualified, young people in Vermont, young people all over this country who want to get a college education, who have the ability to do that, but they can't go to college for one reason. Their families lack the income. That is not only unfair to those individuals and those families, That is crazy in terms of the future of our country. Now, 30, 40 years ago, you had a high school degree in Maine, a high school degree in Vermont. The likelihood is you can go out and get yourself a pretty good job. That is not the case today. The world has changed, the economy has changed, technology has changed. When we talk about public education today, it is no longer good enough to be talking about free public education from first grade through 12th grade. What we need to do now is to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Trump wants to give tax breaks to billionaires. Hillary wants to invest in our young people. Now, I want you to think about it for a moment. But think about what it means if we make public colleges and universities tuition free for the middle class. It does several enormously important things. First of all, it says to people that when you graduate college, you can go out into the world, get the job that you want, not have to worry about paying off outrageous debts for decades.
Yeah.
Secretary Clinton and I have a proposal to deal with student debt, which says that people should be able to refinance their debt at the lowest interest rates they can find.
Yeah.
But here's what that proposal also does, which is revolutionary. We got any teachers here in the room? Yeah. Wow, okay. Teachers understand that all over this country, there are kids who are growing up in families that are economically hard-pressed. And in those families, the likelihood is that mom never went to college, dad never went to college. That was the case in my family. We grew up without much money. My parents never went to college. And when you grow up under those circumstances, the idea of getting a college education, the idea of making it into the middle class is something that seems as likely as going to the moon. What I want to see happen is that every teacher in this country, every parent in this country, every child in this country, if you're in the 3rd grade or the 5th grade here in Bangor or in Burlington, Vermont, I want you to know that if you study hard and you do well in school, yes, you will be able to go to college regardless of the income of your family.
Yeah. And that is a big, big deal because a lot of kids give up intellectually. They give up in the 6th grade. They say, why do I want to study? I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to get a decent job. I'm never going to get to college. And we are telling those children from Maine to California that yes, you do well in school, you study hard, you will be able to make it into the middle class and get a college education. I am a member of the United States Senate Committee on the Environment. And in that capacity, I have had the honor of meeting with scientists not only all over our country, but all over the world. And what the scientific community is telling us, almost unanimously, is that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity,
And it is today already causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world. And what the scientists are also telling us is that, if anything, they underestimated the danger of climate change and what it can do to our planet in terms of more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more rising sea levels, more acidification of the ocean, and more international conflict as people fight for limited natural resources like water or land to grow their crops. That is the reality. You want to hear a difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? Hillary Clinton believes in science. And it is very hard to run a government if you don't believe in science. Donald Trump, despite all of the scientific evidence, thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetrated in China. Can't quite figure out why it came from China, but that's his view. Needless to say, I would not be here today if I did not have profound differences with Mr. Trump on economics, on healthcare, on education, and on the environment. And I think I've made that clear, but I want to say something above and beyond those issues. All of you know, who have studied American history for 5 minutes,